Right. Now for the last part, we talk about the work, energy, and power. So they have something to do with how forces um or how forces influence motion. Okay. Whenever there's work, there's a corresponding force. Whenever there's energy, there's a corresponding force. Whenever there's power, there's a corresponding force as well. So work, it is something that something done when a force causes a displacement. Okay, displacement, meaning we can consider that as work only if the object has moved something, right? Either its body or a certain another object, right? Like in our example, this one, there's no work done because no matter how much force this person exerts, there's another thing, another person or any obstacle that stops the motion, okay? Or keeps this box from moving, right? Since there is no displacement, then there is no work done here. Okay. Unlike in the second examples, second and third examples, um, they are moving. There's a corresponding displacement for the work done. Okay, for the exerted effort, because of the exerted effort, there has been a displacement, either on themselves or on the object they are acting on. So because there's displacement, then there is work done here. So there's work and there's work, right? Now, energy, remember, it is the capacity or ability to perform work. So without energy, we cannot do work. We don't have the force that can be applied to move an object to a certain displacement. Okay? Meaning, in short, we cannot do work without energy. Right? And if we have energy, then there is a corresponding power. Power measures how quickly work is done or how quickly energy is transferred. So, for example, in these two examples, since there is work done, then we measure that in terms of time. So, how much, given this force applied, how much displacement has been resulted um, at this period of time. Okay, meaning, for example, how many meters did it move given a 5 second period? So uh, we have the we have the force applied multiplied by the distance or the displacement and then divide by the time that passed. Okay, and that's power. How quickly did you finish the work? Or how much energy is transferred or how quickly so if you have noticed our electrical devices like our lamps, okay, our lighting equipment are normally rated in terms of power. So watts, we are when we buy a bulb, we are asked how many watts because that wattage indicates how much energy is transferred or how quickly that energy is transferred. So from our supply in our power source to that light bulb, so how quickly the energy has been transferred. So meaning, in other words, how quickly it consumes energy. Okay? So the more power, the more energy is being transferred, the more it consumes energy. Okay? So that's work, energy, and power, and they are all related, and they are all um, dependent on force applied, or they all involve force. Okay? So now, this is one of the most important concepts in the entire physics. Okay, we have the law of conservation of energy, which states that energy cannot be created nor destroyed. It can only be transformed from one form to another, or it can only be transferred from one object to another. Okay? And within an isolated system, the total amount of energy remains constant over time. So, um, example here, by the way, energy can be classified as either potential or kinetic. So, potential energy or PE is the energy in a body due to its position. Or sometimes it's known as energy stored. Okay. While kinetic energy or KE is the energy in a body due to its motion. So, energy in action. This one is energy in action. So, the potential energy is derived using this formula. So, just add these two in our previous equations. PE is just the product of the mass, the gravitational constant, and the height. Meaning, the more mass or the more height an object has, then the more potential energy. Or not really height, the more the farther it is from the reference point. So if the reference point is zero, the ground is zero, then the higher it is from the ground, then the more potential energy it has. Or maybe the more mass it has, then the more potential energy it has. However, remember that mass is, we have such thing as the law of conservation of mass as well, wherein mass cannot be created nor destroyed, and it remains constant in most cases, unless the object has or parts of the object has been have been removed along the way. So as long as the object remains intact, then the mass is also intact. Um, okay, that's why PE is normally determined by its height rather than by its mass. Okay, so for example, this roller coaster, at a very high position, you'll see it has the most potential energy. Okay. On the other hand, we have the KE, the kinetic energy, which is derived using this formula. Just take half of the product of the mass and the square of the velocity. So it has something to do with motion. That's why it is determined by velocity. So if you observe the animation, okay, after reaching the peak, okay, it the roller coaster goes down. So that means because of its very high potential energy, okay, when it goes down, it will be easier converted into kinetic energy. Okay, as it goes down, PE becomes KE, and when it goes up, KE will eventually start to be converted into PE, and vice versa. Goes up, KE converted into PE, goes down, PE converted into KE. So that's actually a minimalist illustration of the law of conservation of energy. So, in short, you can never give what you don't have. So, for example, if you're planning to have a robotic system, if you're planning to build a robotic system, then you cannot expect the robot to move on its own without providing an energy supply to it. Right? You have to include a power source where it can get its energy from. Right? So the energy can be either thermal energy, mechanical energy, electrical, magnetic, chemical, elastic, nuclear, gravitational, or even sound or light. So there are many forms of energy, and um, there are times that you'll see that, okay, the energy has been lost. No, it wasn't actually lost. We cannot never destroy energy. Energy can never be lost, but it can only be transferred into another form or another system. Okay? Or I mean another object, another body. Right? So in collisions, when a car hits another object or another car, Um, of course, PE, P and KE, there will be an exchange in P and KE, and there will also be, as a result of the collision, there will also be some other forms of energy produced. Okay, some of the energy has been converted into thermal, into sound, into what else? Some other forms of energy. Okay, so let's see. We have such thing as the work energy theorem, which states that the net work done by all forces acting on a particle equals the change in its kinetic energy. So mathematically, we can say that the sum of all the work done is just the changes in the kinetic energy, and that's it. Okay, so using that formula, we can derive it further. Just the final kinetic energy minus the initial kinetic energy. If we derive it further, then we have this formula. Okay, so just remember, I think this one is easier than this one. We just derive it. If you need this formula, just remember this one. Woke or wake. So the sum of work is just equal to the change in the kinetic energy. When we say change, difference between the final and the initial kinetic energy. Okay, observe the graphics here. Um, okay, we'll demonstrate them in our sample problems video. Okay, for now, let's talk about regarding work. Forces can either be conservative or non-conservative. When we say conservative forces, the work depends only on initial and final positions, and the energy is conserved, meaning there are no external factors that were able to take part of the energy involved. Okay. Um, Examples, gravity and spring. So in these cases, the energy is conserved. While another example is um, on the other hand, we have the non-conservative forces where work depends on the path taken. So it usually involves energy loss. Um, but remember the lost energy did not just disappear. Okay, it just transformed into another type of energy, especially heat. Okay, so examples of these are friction and air resistance. So friction when our cars again, when a vehicle goes through rough terrain, it experiences a lot of friction. So that means um it loses more energy than it does when it goes through a straight path or a smooth path. Okay, so that's why as application, if we can avoid rough terrains, then better. But if not, if we have to go through a rough terrain, then we have to expect that there will be more energy lost, meaning more energy will be converted into heat because of friction. Okay, so same thing with air resistance when for example, when we drop an item from an airplane. I'm not sure how do you do it. If you drop that item because of air resistance, the the um energy due to the motion of that free falling object will be lessened by air resistance. Okay, some of them will be converted into heat because of the air resistance. Meaning, when it strikes the ground, it will be very hot already because of air resistance. Okay. Remember, air resistance is a form of drag. So drag is something like friction, but um, occurs in fluids. Okay. What's what else? So just remember conservative and non-conservative forces. And also another thing is for rigid bodies, both translation and rotation contribute to energy. So let's just okay, I don't derive this one anymore. Just remember that the kinetic energy is just equal to the half of um the linear velocity, okay, and the rotational velocity. So okay, or the kinetic energy in the linear or should we say the linear kinetic energy and uh the rotational kinetic energy. Okay? Or should we say um the kin the total kinetic energy is just the sum of the kinetic energy in linear motion and the kinetic energy in the rotational motion. Okay? And speaking of linear and the rotational motion, kindly observe these representations. Okay? So we're going to use some of them in our sample problems. Okay, so we're going to have a separate video for that. Okay, as they cannot fit anymore in our slides. Okay. Moving on, we have the term momentum. So, if an object has an energy to move, then as it moves, it gains momentum. So, momentum is a vector quantity that represents the quantity of motion. It is crucial in applications like vehicle crash analysis, robotics motion control, and material handling systems. And a body with large mass or high velocity has large momentum. So, um, momentum is basically the product of the mass and the velocity. So, if you need high momentum, then that object must have either high velocity or high mass, or even both. Okay? And speaking of momentum, we have the law of conservation of momentum. So whatever the momentum before a um, certain point in time, okay, it must be the same after. So for example, if two objects collided, so the momentum of these objects before, the sum of their momentums must be the same after. Okay? Possibly, some of the momentum of the first object will be transferred on the second one during collision, or vice versa. Okay? But the sum must be conserved. The total momentum must be conserved. So all in all, the momentum of these two objects must be the same in before and after. Okay? So momentum is, remember again, the product of mass and velocity. Okay, so that's the same before. That should be the same before and after. Right? So if you have three objects that collided, then you have three objects being summed here. Okay? And also when we talk about momentum, we usually encounter the term impulse, which is the effect of a force acting over a time interval. It measures how much a force changes momentum over time. And even a small force can produce a large effect if applied long enough. And for example, a large force acting briefly can produce the same effect. So that's another important concept. And we have these examples here. Um, okay, as you can see, um, the object with a higher mass usually has a higher momentum. That's why it's more consistent with its motion, with its direction. Unlike the smaller ones, okay, smaller ones are can uh they move slower because their um their path is or their movement is not consistent. Okay. Also, momentum can also be affected by the type of surface um it contacts with. Okay, so for example, water, because of its momentum, most solids usually go through water. But um when we compare soil and wood, you'll see that in soil, the the soil will absorb the momentum, okay? While in wood, it does not. Okay, it will the ball has a tendency to bounce back. Okay, so in short, the surface involved also determines the result of the collision. And when we say collision, later we're going to define that. Remember, momentum can be either linear or angular. Okay, and we have such thing as a impulse momentum theorem, which states that the change in momentum of a body equals the impulse applied, and it provides a direct way to compute velocity changes without solving differential equations. Because okay, we're going to demonstrate this in our sample problems video. Okay. In the meantime, collision, we are applying the laws and theorems stated earlier. Um, Collision is a brief interaction between two or more objects. When it occurs, the objects exert equal and opposite forces on each other. Okay, this one and this one, so they exert equal opposite forces on each other. And the collision could either be elastic or inelastic. I think it's one extreme. We have the perfectly elastic collisions, where the objects separating after impact with zero kinetic energy loss. And that is shown here. For example, if this is a perfectly elastic collision because, as you can see, the velocity before and the velocity after are the same. They are unchanged. Okay, there's no kinetic energy lost during the collision. Okay, so they just collided and then went back afterwards. Right. So there's no change in velocity, no change in direction, no kinetic energy lost. Okay. While on the other extreme, we have the perfectly inelastic collision, wherein the objects stick together after the impact with maximum energy loss. So meaning uh, the more inelastic the collision is, the more energy lost. Okay. So um, for example, if these two objects undergo perfectly inelastic collision, then they will stick together and ideally they will stop there. Right? That's a perfectly inelastic. So they didn't bounce back, they just stick together. Right? But in between we have the elastic and inelastic. So if the just like what you see here, if the collision is elastic, then you see the objects or both momentum and KE are conserved. Okay? While in inelastic, only momentum is conserved. So I'll just observe the animation so you can understand further. All right. So the more inelastic, the more tendency the two objects or the colliding objects stick together. Okay. So that's collision, and I guess that would be all for our module 4. Thank you very much for listening. Yay, we have finally reached the end of our part 1. So our midterm coverage. So thank you very much, everyone, to our guests, to everyone else who took the time to study with us. Thank you very much also for joining us, and we really hope you've learned something. Right. So by the way, again, this is Marvin, and I hope to see you in the next part on the final term of our discussion. Right. Thank you very much, everyone.